We had the honor of presenting data from a multicenter phase 2 study on the treatment of limited stage classical Hodgkin lymphoma. Now, right now, limited stage classical Hodgkin lymphoma is typically treated with AVD chemotherapy followed by radiation. And that cures close to 90% of patients with limited stage Hodgkin lymphoma. However, there are late consequences of the toxicities of radiation, particularly in a disease that affects young people, and these are late secondary cancers as well as heart disease and lung disease. We do know that if you compare ABVD with radiation to ABVD without radiation, that there is a slightly higher relapse rate because of removing radiation, but no clear difference in overall survival. But one outstanding question is if we can add in a novel treatment to the upfront therapy of Hodgkin lymphoma that allows removal of radiation and potentially the drug bleomycin, which also carries high risks of bleomycin lung toxicity, which can indeed be fatal. So we designed a phase 2 study that removed both bleomycin and radiation in patients with non-bulky limited stage Hodgkin lymphoma. We incorporated the novel targeted drug Brentuximab vedotin, which is an anti-CD30 monoclonal antibody conjugated to the microtubule toxin monomethyl auristatin E. This particular drug is highly active in relapsed Hodgkin lymphoma, for which it's FDA approved based on a clinical trial that showed a 75% response rate, including a 34% complete remission rate in people whose Hodgkin lymphoma had relapsed after autologous stem cell transplant. Our hypothesis that if we remove bleomycin and radiation and add in the targeted therapy Brentuximab vedotin, that we might enhance efficacy in this population while limiting long-term toxicity from the radiation and bleomycin. We accrued 34 patients to this clinical trial at multiple centers in the United States. And what we found is that at the time of the interim response assessment, 100% of patients achieved a complete remission using this combination therapy after just 2 cycles. Now, if you compare that to clinical trials that have used AVD alone, that number is about 80%. So it does appear that we've increased the interim complete response rate by targeting the cells using Brentuximab vedotin. In our study, that patients then received 2 additional rounds of Brentuximab with chemotherapy, Brentuximab AVD, thus achieved 4 total cycles of chemotherapy with Brentuximab vedotin. At the end of the study, all patients again had achieved a complete remission except for one. A single patient did progress and went on to second-line chemotherapy and is now in remission. Also, one additional patient, unfortunately, had a treatment-related toxicity. This was an elderly patient who unfortunately died of neutropenic sepsis during combination chemotherapy. However, all remaining patients achieved a complete remission and there have been no additional relapses. So effectively, all but one patient has received an ongoing remission using targeted therapy, allowing a shortening of the amount of chemotherapy cycles and elimination of both bleomycin and radiation. Our median follow-up time is only 14 months, and so we do need some ongoing follow-up past the 2-year mark to really ensure that these responses are sustained. But thus far, this is very encouraging data.